serial killers have always existed on the fringes of society, hidden in plain sight, living double lives, and committing acts so brutal that they shock entire nations. While many people recognize names like Ted Bundy or Jeffrey Dahmer, the truth is that the most prolific killers in history often come from places and periods that never gained the same global media attention. In fact, some of the deadliest serial killers ever recorded aren't from the United States or Europe at all. They operated in regions where law enforcement struggled, records were incomplete, and victims disappeared without immediate investigation. In this documentary, we're counting down the 10 most prolific serial killers of all time, ranked by confirmed victim count. These numbers represent the murders police were able to prove. Yet in many cases, investigators believe the real totals could be far higher. Before we begin, a warning. This video contains discussions of real crimes, including violence against adults and children. Nothing here is glamorized. Our goal is to explore the facts, psychology, and societal failures that allowed these killers to operate for so long, from Colombia's infamous predators to Russia's brutal werewolf cop, to monstrous figures who targeted families, hitchhikers, vulnerable youth, and entire communities. These are the darkest chapters of criminal history. Let's begin our countdown. 10. Ted Bundy. 30 confirmed victims, USA. Number 10 on our list is a name almost everyone recognizes. Ted Bundy, one of America's most iconic serial killers. Bundy was charming, articulate, and outwardly successful. Traits that helped him lure victims and evade suspicion for years. Ted Bundy's murders occurred primarily between 1974 and 1978 across multiple states, including Washington, Utah, Colorado, and Florida. His victims were almost always young women, often college students, many of whom physically resembled Bundy's ex-girlfriend. This detail has led psychologists to believe that Bundy projected personal anger and resentment onto his victims. Bundy used tactics that played into his public persona. Sometimes he wore a fake cast or sling, pretending to be injured so women would help him carry books or load items into his car. Once they were close enough, he attacked swiftly, overpowering them and transporting them to secluded areas. His ability to escape justice was almost unbelievable. Bundy escaped from police custody twice, once by jumping out of a courthouse window, and later by cutting through the ceiling of his jail cell. His final escape led him to Florida, where he committed some of his most violent and frantic crimes, including the brutal attack on the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. Bundy eventually confessed to 30 murders, though investigators believe the real number could be twice as high. He was executed in 1989. Bundy's case remains one of the most studied due to how drastically he deviated from the stereotypical image of a predator. He showed the world that serial killers can look ordinary, even respectable, making him one of the most frightening figures in American criminal history. Onoprienko, 52 confirmed victims. Ukraine, number 9 on our list, is Anatoly Onoprienko, known as the Terminator. Born in Ukraine in 1959, Onoprienko had a troubled childhood marked by instability and emotional trauma. His mother died when he was young. He was placed in an orphanage, a place he later described as cold and unforgiving. Some psychologists believe he developed severe abandonment issues and anger toward families because he never had one of his own. His killing spree, which took place during the 1990s, was terrifyingly methodical. Unlike most serial killers who target specific demographics, Onoprienko targeted entire families. He often broke into rural homes at night, killing everyone inside, children, parents, even guests, leaving no witnesses behind. He moved across Ukraine with firearms, setting homes on fire to destroy evidence. The randomness of his crimes made them incredibly difficult for law enforcement to track. Villages lived in fear, unsure where or when he would strike next. Onoprienko was arrested in 1996 after a massive manhunt. In his confession, he admitted to killing 52 people. Though Ukrainian officials suspected he may have murdered additional victims whose cases were never conclusively linked to him. During his trial, Onoprienko showed no remorse. He often smiled and calmly explained his actions, claiming he was chosen to carry out the killings. The Ukrainian government sentenced him to death, but because Ukraine later abolished capital punishment, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. He died in prison in 2013. Onoprienko's crimes stand out not only for the number of victims, but also the brutality and complete lack of discrimination. His killings shattered the sense of safety in rural Ukraine and remain some of the most terrifying mass murders ever committed by a single perpetrator. 8. Andrei Chikatilo. 52 confirmed victims. Russia, USSR. At number 8 is Andrei Chikatilo, often referred to as the Butcher of Rostov. Operating from 1978 to 1990 across the former Soviet Union, Chikatilo preyed on women and children, exploiting the chaos and secrecy that characterized the latter years of the USSR. Chikatilo grew up during one of the harshest periods of Soviet history. Born in 1936 in Ukraine, he survived famine, war, and severe poverty. These early traumas, combined with deep psychological issues, shaped the disturbed personality that emerged later in life. His hunting grounds were bus stations, train stations, and wooded areas, places where runaway youth or lone travelers might disappear without immediate alarm. Chikatilo often promised food, money, or work, luring victims into remote forests or abandoned buildings. His crimes were staggeringly violent. After murdering his victims, he often mutilated the bodies, an act driven by deep-seated psychological impulses and sexual frustration. Soviet authorities struggled to investigate the murders effectively due to bureaucratic secrecy and an unwillingness to acknowledge the existence of serial killers within the communist system. In a tragic turn, police arrested and even executed other individuals mistakenly believed to be the killer, allowing Chikatilo to continue murdering for years. His eventual capture came after an observant policeman noticed him emerging from a wooded area where a body was later discovered. When confronted with mounting evidence, Chikatilo confessed to 56 murders, although he was convicted of 52. During his trial, which was televised, Chikatilo behaved erratically, shouting, laughing, even singing. He was executed by a single gunshot in 1994. Chikatilo's case is infamous not only for its brutality, but also because it revealed deep flaws in Soviet investigative procedures, leading to major reforms in Russian criminal profiling and forensic science. 7. Yang Xinhai. 67 confirmed victims. China. Number 7 is Yang Xinhai, China's most prolific known serial killer, responsible for 67 confirmed murders between 1999 and 2003, known as the Monster Killer. Yang was born into a poor farming family and spent much of his early adulthood drifting from job to job. Yang's crimes were unique in both brutality and consistency. He targeted entire households, usually at night, breaking into rural homes armed with axes, hammers, or shovels. His attacks were explosive and devastating. No survivors, no witnesses. Unlike many serial killers driven by personal obsession or psychological connection to their victims, Yang claimed his motive was simple revenge against society. After several prison terms for robbery and other offenses, he developed deep resentment toward the world. He later stated that killing people made him feel excited and powerful. Chinese authorities had difficulty tracking Yang because he constantly traveled between provinces, often doing temporary construction or factory work under false names. China's vast size and inconsistent record-keeping between regions made it nearly impossible for investigators to link the murders until much later. Yang was eventually arrested during a routine police sweep when officers discovered he was traveling with no ID, an automatic red flag under China's security laws. Once connected to the murders through DNA evidence, he confessed almost immediately and showed no remorse. His trial was swift, and Yang was executed in 2004. Yang's killing spree forced China to reevaluate rural safety, interprovincial communication, and the need for centralized criminal databases. His case stands as one of the darkest in modern Chinese history. 6. Pedro Rodrigues Filho. 71 confirmed victims, Brazil. Number 6 is Pedro Rodrigues Filho, also known as Pedrinho Matador or Killer Petey. Unlike typical serial killers, Pedro Rodrigues often targeted criminals, drug dealers, gang members, and even corrupt police officers. But despite the vigilante angle, his body count makes him one of the most prolific killers in history. Born in 1954 in Brazil, Rodrigues grew up in an abusive household. According to his own accounts, he committed his first murder at age 14, killing a local official he believed had fired his father unjustly. This early act set him on a lifelong path of violence. Rodrigues became a kind of underground enforcer, killing drug traffickers and criminals across Brazil. But the line between vigilantism and personal gratification quickly blurred. He murdered rivals without hesitation, and many of his victims were killed brutally. While in prison, Rodrigues killed 47 inmates, many of them convicted rapists or murderers. His total confirmed victims number around 71, although he claimed his real count exceeded 100. One of the most shocking details of his story is that he eventually murdered his own father, who had killed Pedro's mother, in prison, stabbing him dozens of times and even removing part of his heart despite his horrific crimes. Brazil's legal system at the time capped prison sentences at 30 years. Rodrigues was released, later re-arrested on new charges, then released again. His life has been the subject of documentaries, interviews, and heavy debate in Brazil about justice, rehabilitation, and public safety. Unlike many killers on this list, Rodrigues claims he no longer engages in violence and has reinvented himself as a YouTube content creator, speaking out against crime. His story remains controversial and disturbing, raising questions about the limits of criminal justice systems. 5. Javed Iqbal, 100 claimed, 2 confirmed, Pakistan. Number 5 is a unique and deeply controversial case. Javed Iqbal, a Pakistani criminal who claimed to have murdered 100 boys, though police were only able to officially confirm 2 victims. Iqbal was born into a wealthy family and ran several businesses, including rental properties. In 1999, he sent a chilling letter to police and newspapers, claiming he had murdered 100 boys between the ages of 6 and 16. In the letter, he detailed how he lured runaways and homeless children by offering shelter or money. He said he strangled them, dissolved their bodies in acid, and kept detailed records of each victim. The confession triggered a massive manhunt. When police raided his home, they found photographs of numerous children, containers filled with acid, and clothing believed to belong to missing boys. But due to lack of recovered bodies or definitive forensic evidence, only 2 murders were legally confirmed. Iqbal later turned himself in, claiming he wanted to expose police corruption and the societal neglect of Pakistan's most vulnerable children. However, authorities believed his motives were far more sinister. The court sentenced Iqbal to be executed in the same manner he claimed to have killed his victims, strangulation followed by dissolution in acid. But before the sentence could be carried out, Iqbal was found dead in his prison cell under suspicious circumstances. Officials ruled it a suicide, though many believe he may have been murdered to prevent further details from surfacing. Whether Javed Iqbal truly killed 100 children or exaggerated his crimes remains debated. Regardless, his case exposed glaring holes in Pakistan's child protection systems and remains one of the most disturbing criminal stories in South Asian history. 4. Gary Ridgway. 49 confirmed victims, USA. Coming in at number 4 is Gary Ridgway, known as the Green River Killer. Operating in Washington state during the 1980s and 1990s, Ridgway targeted women and teenage girls, many of whom were runaways or sex workers. Ridgway's crimes were chillingly methodical. He often picked up victims along Pacific Highway South, offering rides before strangling them and dumping their bodies in wooded areas or riverbanks. Because many of his victims were marginalized individuals whose disappearances weren't always immediately reported, Ridgway evaded detection for years. Investigators initially believed the killings were the work of multiple perpetrators due to the sheer scale of the crimes. At one point, more than 100 detectives were assigned to the case, making it one of the largest serial killer investigations in U.S. history. Ridgway managed to maintain a seemingly normal life. He worked as a truck painter, attended church, and was known by co-workers as quiet and unremarkable. This dual life allowed him to operate undetected even as police interviewed him multiple times. DNA technology eventually broke the case. In 2001, advancements in forensic testing linked Ridgway to several victims faced with overwhelming evidence. He confessed to killing 49 women, later claiming the number was more than 70. To avoid the death penalty, Ridgway agreed to cooperate with investigators, helping locate remains and describe his methods. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Gary Ridgway's ability to blend into society, along with his cold and emotionless confessions, make him one of the most chilling killers in American history. 3. Mikhail Popkov, 83 confirmed victims, Russia. Number 3 is Mikhail Popkov, a former police officer from Siberia, responsible for 83 confirmed murders between 1992 and 2010, known as the Werewolf or the Angarsk Maniac. Popkov targeted women, often offering them rides in his police car before assaulting and killing them. Popkov's story is especially disturbing because his position in law enforcement gave him both access and authority. Victims trusted him because of his uniform. Investigators later discovered that Popkov often committed murders while on duty, using police-issued vehicles and weapons. His victims were primarily women walking alone at night, though he occasionally killed men who were accompanying them. Popkov claimed his motive was to cleanse society of women he believed were immoral or unfaithful, projecting his own psychological issues. For years, police struggled to connect the murders, partially because they never suspected one of their own. Popkov even participated in the investigations, giving him an opportunity to mislead others and stay ahead of the case. His eventual capture came after expanded DNA testing of police personnel. A sample linked him to several crime scenes, leading to his arrest. During interrogations, Popkov calmly confessed to dozens of murders, showing little remorse. In 2015, he was sentenced to life in prison. Later, he admitted to additional killings, bringing his confirmed total to 83, one of the highest in recorded history. Popkov's case highlights how dangerous a predator can be when they occupy positions of trust, positions that mask their crimes and provide tools to evade justice. 2. Pedro Lopez, 110 confirmed victims, South America. Coming in at number 2 is Pedro Alonso Lopez, known as the Monster of the Andes. Born in Colombia in 1948, Lopez became one of the most notorious predators in South American history, with 110 confirmed victims, though he confessed to killing more than 300 girls across Colombia, Peru, and Ecuador. Lopez suffered severe abuse and trauma during childhood. He left home early and lived on the streets, where he was assaulted repeatedly. These early experiences fueled a deep hatred that he later directed toward vulnerable young girls. During the 1970s and 1980s, Lopez traveled across Latin America, targeting impoverished communities, especially those with lax law enforcement and high rates of child disappearances. He often lured victims by offering food or gifts, then attacked them in remote areas. His killing spree might have continued indefinitely, if not for a stroke of luck. In Ecuador, a large-scale flood revealed a mass grave containing the bodies of young girls. Victims Lopez had buried near towns and marketplaces. Police increased patrols, and soon after, Lopez was caught trying to abduct another girl. During interrogation, he confessed to hundreds of murders, even leading police to graves. Ecuadorian authorities convicted him of 110 murders, the highest number they could legally prove. Because Ecuador's maximum prison sentence at the time was only 16 years, Lopez was released in 1998. He was deported to Colombia, declared mentally unfit, and transferred to a psychiatric hospital. He was released once again in 2002, and then vanished. To this day, his whereabouts are unknown, and many believe he may have resumed killing. Pedro Lopez remains one of the deadliest and most frightening serial killers the world has ever produced. 1. Luis Garavito, 193 confirmed victims, Colombia. Number 1 on our list is Luis Alfredo Garavito, the most prolific confirmed serial killer in modern history, with 193 proven victims. Though investigators believe the real number may exceed 300, known as La Bestia or the Beast, Garavito preyed primarily on homeless boys, street children, and young workers across Colombia during the 1980s and 1990s. Garavito's crimes occurred during a turbulent period marked by civil conflict, displacement, and widespread poverty, circumstances that made runaway and missing children tragically common. Many families didn't report disappearances immediately, giving Garavito the ability to operate unnoticed for years. He often posed as a priest, social worker, or charity volunteer, using these disguises to gain trust. Once alone with his victims, he would lead them to isolated locations before attacking. His crimes were among the most sadistic and violent in recorded history. The breakthrough came when authorities noticed similarities in multiple crime scenes, discarded clothing, bottles of alcohol, and the specific bindings used on victims. After a long investigation, Garavito was arrested in 1999. During questioning, he provided maps and descriptions of crime scenes, helping police identify many victims. His trial revealed shocking details, not only about the scale of his crimes, but about how systemic failures allowed him to continue for so long. Garavito was sentenced to over 1,800 years in prison. But due to Colombian legal limits, his effective sentence was capped at around 40 years. Garavito died in 2023 while still incarcerated. His case remains a tragic example of how vulnerable populations, especially street children, can become targets when social systems fail to protect them. Serial killers are often portrayed in movies and media as masterminds, geniuses, or mythical monsters. But as we've seen in this documentary, the most prolific killers in history were often shaped by a combination of childhood trauma, social instability, lack of mental health support, and failures in law enforcement systems. What makes these cases especially tragic is not only the scale of the violence, but the missed opportunities to stop it sooner. Many of these killers operated during times of war, poverty, political upheaval, or bureaucratic dysfunction, circumstances that allowed them to target the most vulnerable members of society. While studying these crimes is disturbing, understanding them helps us recognize warning signs, improve criminal profiling, and strengthen systems that protect vulnerable people, especially children and those living on society's margins. Thank you for watching this documentary. If you want more deep dives into criminal psychology, true crime, or dark history, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. Stay safe and take care of one another.